Hey everybody, it is me, Chase, for the Wednesday live stream. Sorry I wasn't here last week, had some other obligations get in the way, but I am really happy to be joining you this week. And this is going to be a little bit of a different live stream because it's not going to be super politics heavy. As you may know, I'm what's called a pop culture libertarian. So not only am I into politics, wanting to spread those kind of messages of liberty and things like that, but I also believe in a lot of times spreading that message through the pop culture lens. And sometimes that has us reviewing pieces of art, looking at what's going on in that art and kind of what it's speaking to in terms of our culture, the moment that we're in, and how that can relate to the ideas of liberty and individual freedom. But then also, a little bit of this show is going to be talking about, frankly, saying goodbye to some childhood icons and to heroes. And we've had two major celebrity deaths in the past few weeks of people who were really coming to their popularity, in the latter half of the 20th century and had kind of a second part of their career due to, frankly, reality television into the 2000s. And so I'm going to talk about that as well. So today, again, not politics heavy, more pop culture heavy. Let's Chase Oliver. Yes. Hey, Chase. Hello to you. Hello to you. Hello, Chase. Hello to you. Got the hand waving there from Connor. So I have just a few topics tonight. I don't know if we're going to go the full hour this evening, mostly because I am going to be doing a couple of movie reviews, but I don't want to get super spoiler heavy. And so I'm going to have to kind of be in a little mile high there when I'm talking about these. Hello, Sherry. How are you doing? Just saw you this past week when I was in Fort Wayne. Shout out to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was at the Fort Wayne Pride Festival representing with the Libertarian Party of Allen County out there. Great turnout, lots of fun until the rain came. It was a huge thunderstorm that Saturday, but I enjoyed it as well as enjoying the Fort Wayne Botanical Gardens. Shout out to those folks. Very nice. You wouldn't expect a botanical garden right there in the heart of downtown, but there it is in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sherry. Chase, for the record, Jesus was a volunteer. Thank you. Well, Rocky Top, I am a volunteer fan. So if you noticed that, Chase, you're awesome. No, you're awesome. But let's get right into it. Let's talk about these two major blockbusters that have come out in the last few weeks and discuss maybe the similarities, the differences. We'll do that after we talk about each film individually, but let's just get right into it with the film that came out first of the two, and that is Superman 2025. Just let me give some introductory thoughts here. Is a charming film. It is, first off, it was really adorable to see dads and their kids, or uncles and their nephews, I guess, or, just seeing, the adults bringing the kids to the movie. And the kids either dressed as Superman or their dad and them dressed as Superman together. I saw a lot of that because I did go the opening weekend of the film. And it was just a really, it was a warm film that really is about being the child. So I think many of the kids who watch this film, maybe the theme kind of went over their head because they're young, they're seeing Superman, they're seeing all this action and fun. But the real theme of that is about being a child who's, and how you feel sometimes where you maybe are either beholden to the idea of your parents or that you're inspired by your parents. And both of those themes are very prevalent through this film. Fantastic, first introduction into the new DC universe. James Gunn directed this. He's also kind of at the helm of this new DCEU. And I think it was just a really great film. I think David Corenswet is a fantastic Clark Kent and Superman. Probably my favorite, frankly, since Christopher Reeve. He just really embodied both characters very well. Did a good job of separating out Superman from Clark, which is something that Christopher Reeve was also really good at doing, changing the posture, the voice, the mannerisms to really match who he's being at this moment. And like I said, it's a charming film. It feels like a comic book from the Silver Age, even though it's set in the modern times. We'll talk about Silver Age settings in a minute here, but this movie itself, just the attitude of it, felt very much like a Silver Age comic. It had the whimsy of that, while also really being true to form, to the character of Superman. It really broadens the universe very quickly. It is not like, scientific libertarian saying something I was just about to say. It's nice to see Superman that isn't another origin story. Yeah, I think, most of us know the origin story of Superman. He's part of Americana. And so they did not busy us with another version of the origin story. They just quickly glossed over that at the very beginning, like, hey, he was 30 years ago, he landed on Earth. 3 years ago, he became Superman. And here we go. Like, it really just brings you right into the modern moment without having to do a whole origin story. And that's a minor spoiler. I'm going to have minor spoilers here. I'm going to try to stick to mostly things we see in the trailers, so that way we're not breaking too much ground. I think another thing that makes this film charming is Crypto, the super dog. I got this as part of, when I go to the theaters, I do love swag. I have to say the modern thing of like movie theaters offering you like themed popcorn buckets or themed cups and things like that gets me to spend more money. I am totally a sucker for that. So I have a little cup topper here of Crypto, the super dog, who is adorable in the film. As a dog owner, warms my heart to see that character. And again, just gives you an idea of how whimsical this is, right? That they're not so super into themselves and so serious like the Henry Cavill Superman, which has its own charm, those movies. But this movie is so much more whimsical. They have a super dog. And, like I said, merch. I got the super cup here, with the little logo thing on the top. Like, this is kind of cool. I do like that movies do kind of commodify this a little bit and give you something other than just the ticket alone to commemorate the film. But that aside, the film was just adorable. And I think, I think Crypto being in it was a great choice for families, because it really makes the movie just more fun for families. Like, I think a lot of kids who have a dog are going to want to put a cape on their dog and make them their Crypto for Halloween, right? It's the only way theaters can separate themselves from the streaming services. Well, that and giant screens and amazing sound. I'll talk about IMAX in just a minute as well, with the second film we're going to talk about. But back to Superman. I cannot say, how much I'm so happy with the way Nicholas Hoult portrayed Lex Luthor. Just a true villain. His anger towards Superman, which, it's very true to the comics that, Lex Luthor feels this kind of bigotry towards Superman for being an alien being who gets all the love, while he is like the super intelligent human being. And he just doesn't feel that love. So he's very jealous of Superman. You see that jealousy, you feel that jealousy. And Nicholas Hoult, excellent job. There's so much chemistry between David Corenswet and Nicholas Hoult, as well as between him and the lovely character of Lois Lane, who I think was well done. Oh God, why is my name skipping? It's just Rachel Brosnahan. There we go, Rachel Brosnahan. That is her name. Had to find that quickly in my brain there for a second. She was excellent as Lois Lane. I felt the chemistry between her and Corenswet as well. It really did feel like a fully fleshed out world. They expanded upon it. There are other characters other than Superman. You have folks like Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, Hawk Girl, characters that were not like on the front line. They're not Wonder Woman and Batman, they're not like the front line of DC characters. Guy Gardner is not even like the best Green Lantern, right? But I really love that they threw those characters in, because it really fleshed things out, especially, not spoiling anything, but if you like, if you want to see a really fun, character in this new movie, Mr. Terrific, shout out to him. And just to keep this related to politics really quickly, my campaign manager from my last campaign went and saw this film, and he immediately messaged me after seeing it and said something, after I'd seen it, saying, "Doesn't the character of Mr. Terrific remind you of our policy director who was on our staff?" And I say, absolutely, in temperament and tone. And I mean that with the sincerest compliment. Mr. Terrific was a great character. It looks like he signed a 3-picture deal to be Mr. Terrific. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that character. I'm looking forward to it. Because frankly, best side character. Lex Luthor Player Hater of the Year. Absolutely, Jason. Also, Boris Johnson's Green Lantern was cool. Making fun of Nathan Fillion's haircut in that movie. Yeah, I thought he was a little too blonde, actually. Guy Gardner is more of a redhead, and the haircut did kind of read as Boris Johnson a little bit. But Ed Gathegi, who played Mr. Terrific, he was also the character of Darwin in X-Men First Class. He kind of died off really quickly in that film. I feel he got a real redemption in the superhero movie column playing Mr. Terrific. So, all in all, if I was to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, and just remember, I am a comic book nerd, so I'm kind of biased towards these kinds of films. I would absolutely give Superman like an 8.5 out of 10. Is it a perfect film? No. I do think that they could have actually made the movie a little longer and fleshed things out a little bit more. It is very quick paced, which is different than a lot of Superman movies. It's weird that I'm asking for more, even though I am just praising how quickly it was paced and well it was paced, but they could have put a little bit more meat on the bone, but a great film altogether. So Superman, and to keep it also somewhat political, there is a little bit of a subtext between about one country invading another country. I'll let you watch the film, and you can determine what you think that might be an allegory to, and what the lesson there might be. But yeah, wow, yeah, a good film. I agree. So let's talk about the next film in this kind of blockbuster summer. It's the Barbieheimer of 2025. What they're calling it is the week of super, the summer of super fantastic. Well, Superman being the first part of that. And let's see, Fantastic Four First Steps being the second part of that. And I just saw this movie in IMAX the other day. And really, if you do have an IMAX screen near you, I encourage you definitely to see this film in IMAX if you can, because of the scale of the villain, which we will talk about a little bit. It does read really well in IMAX. This movie directed by Matt Shakman, who also was the kind of the show lead on WandaVision, and kind of those stories. He has a great history with Marvel, but really a very creative eye. I was very happy to see this film directed by him. If for no other reason than I have a boyfriend who's a huge Agatha Harkness fan, and he, in his mind, if you don't know, Agatha Harkness, in addition to being a character in a Marvel TV show, in the comic books was also the nanny for one of the Fantastic Four's children. And so the whole movie, he's like, she's going to show up. She's going to show up. Because if you're not aware, First Steps, and this is also shown in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything, does involve the family dynamic of the Fantastic Four, including the birth of their first child. Sue Storm is pregnant in the film. And this is a great cast. Like, this is, to me, again, just like I feel like David Corenswet and Nicholas Hoult really portrayed their characters so well from the comic books. This group of actors playing the Fantastic Four, and there have been 3 different cast iterations, fourth time's the charm, so to speak, of the Fantastic Four. The first iteration being a unreleased film in the early 90s. It was literally made just to preserve the rights and then never released. I've seen that film. Doesn't really count, I guess, as a release of the film, so we'll just put that as an honorable mention. But then you have the other 3 films: Fantastic Four in 2007, Fantastic, or the early 2000s, those films, Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, the Michael Chiklis, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, and Ian Grafel led cast. And then you have the Fan Four Stick film, directed by Josh Trank, the one with Miles Teller and Michael B. Jordan. It was not very good. It was very, very poorly received. This one, the cast, you have Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, Eben Moss-Bacharach playing Ben Grimm / the Thing, the voice of the Thing as well, when he is the Thing, and then Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, Human Torch. All of these people have really good, you've seen all of these actors in many things, but especially Pedro Pascal. That was my biggest worry, is that I was going to be tired of Pedro Pascal and have that kind of fatigue, which can be a real thing with some big name actors. But honestly, he did such a good job as Reed. And the rest of them did amazing. I think this is my favorite version of the Thing that's ever been on screen because he's kind of soft spoken. He doesn't have a gruffy voice like that. I don't like that kind of thing. Like, I like that the Thing sounds like a human being, but also every movement of his skin and every time he moves, you feel how heavy and strong he is. Just with the sound effects alone, did such a good job. Joseph Quinn, you probably know from Stranger Things, where he's a metalhead playing Metallica, fighting demons in that show. And this, he is blonde, and he is definitely the kind of ladies' man version of Human Torch, which is one of the classic character traits of him. I appreciate that they give him more to do than just being the hothead, just being the ladies' man. They give him a lot more to do in this film. Don't want to spoil too much, but he's great. And then I really feel like you get the idea that Sue Storm is like the heart of the team in this film. She is the mom of the team. And they do a great job of like portraying all of their powers. I feel like really Mr. Fantastic, he kind of in other films when they have him stretching and stuff, it feels like it's not heavy. There's no real weight to it. Just kind of feels like a computer animated CGI thing. This feels a lot better and more realistic. I also want to shout out the two villains of the film. You have Julia Garner playing Silver Surfer. If you have not seen her chilling kind of monologue in the trailers, she just really brings it to the role in the limited amount of time she has. I love the way they portray the surfer traveling on her board. It feels way cooler than say kind of, and I do want to shout out Doug Jones, who played the Silver Surfer in The Rise of Silver Surfer, and Lawrence Fishburne, who portrayed the voice of the Silver Surfer. I thought it was pretty good in that film, but I really do love the way she is in this film. And for people, they gender swapped Silver Surfer. First off, there is a female Silver Surfer in the comics. Don't freak out, Jesus. But it actually fits the storyline better to have this character being a female in the film. And then Ralph Ineson as Galactus. That is why you should see this film in IMAX. The scale of the villain. If you're not familiar with Galactus as a villain from the comic books, he is literally a giant cosmic entity who eats entire planets. Like, he consumes the energy of entire planets to fuel him and to give him, and he's kind of this like cosmic necessity in the world, that like there has to be death in the world for there to be new life, and he is kind of the devourer of worlds. And it's not that he's really a villain per se, but that he has this kind of everlasting hunger and like desire to consume. And it is a really awesome villain. They do the size and scope of him so well. He is terrifying. He is like a kaiju sized villain, and it is really well portrayed. Like, again, going back to the previous Rise of the Silver Surfer film, in that Galactus was never really fully shown. He was just kind of this space cloud threat, whereas in this film you truly get the size and the awesome scope of the threat. And so again, where I think Superman is about being the child in the family, really a lot of those themes revolve around being a child and how you relate to your parents. This film really relates to being a parent and how it relates to your child. So while I think kids, will really love the themes, and especially as you think of your parents, as a child, when I watch Superman, it makes me think of my parents a lot, and reflect upon what they've done to bring me up in the world and make me who I am. And Superman does a lot of that in his film. The Fantastic Four is kind of a mirror image, where it will have a lot of parents thinking about them being parents for the first time and what it was like, and like the fear and uncertainty and expectation of becoming a parent. And as an uncle, I really identify with the character of Johnny Storm, who, I'm not going to spoil anything, but he loves his nephew. He loves Sue and Reed's child, and would do anything to protect that child, right? And I'm an uncle, and I think for me, that theme really resonates. Like, I would die for my nephews and nieces. I would do anything as an uncle for them, even though they're not my kid, right? They're my family's kids. And you really feel that sense of community and family. And even Ben Grimm, who's not biologically related to Sue and Johnny and Reed, he is an uncle to the family too. And you see this kind of family dynamic. And so while Superman will have you thinking about your parents as a child, Fantastic Four will be thinking you thinking about your child as a parent or an uncle or an aunt. Connor says, to be fair, death is an ethically necessary phenomenon for all life forms. Yeah. And Galactus kind of has that cosmic responsibility. So to that end, he's not really a villain, and neither is Silver Surfer, is Harold, who's picking out these worlds to devour. They're just kind of this cosmic force that we have to combat. You know, that the Fantastic Four has to combat, this world has to combat. And so I love the film. I would also give it maybe an 8.5 or a 9. Out of the two, I slightly enjoyed Fantastic Four a little bit more. This could be, you know, honestly, it's really hard to pick from the two. Like, nearly I almost just said I liked Fantastic Four more, but as I said that, I really thought about like the warm feeling I got at the end of Superman. I'm excited to see both. Really, I'll give them both an 8.5 out of 10. There's neither are perfect films. I think both are fantastic, super films. Let's use those terms, right? And I recommend you see both of them. Tell me what you think in the in next week's live stream. Throw those in the comments if you watch these movies between now and then. Don't spoil too much if you're commenting right now, but yeah, I think it was a great movie, and I encourage folks to go out and check both of them out. And as far as tying both films to kind of the ideas of liberty and the ideas that we can be a better world, really both Superman and Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four and the rest of the Fantastic Four really show us like the best we can be of ourselves if we are not afraid to be good people and to care about other people. And in both films, there's huge themes of not that we're not doing it alone, right? That Superman, as super as he is, there's these other heroes in the world too. And the Fantastic Four, while they're a family of superheroes, they rely on one another, but also they rely on their community and their world. And I think it really speaks to the fact that you don't need to have that being forced upon you, that those are natural human connections that we make with one another. And so to me, those are kind of maybe some libertarian-ish themes that I gained from the movie. I won't say either of them are like bastions of libertarian philosophy or anything. But they both speak out against war. They both speak out for the idea that we can peacefully coexist with one another without blowing each other up. And that, it's good to have your parents as heroes in your life. I think they were great. So, yeah, Connor will throw this out there. Being evil isn't about fear. It's about people's lack of willingness to suppress their own malicious nature. Word. And so that's the movie side of things. And yeah, check them both out. Shout out to both cast and crew. They worked very hard on these films, and I'm excited to see what comes next in both of their universes. Looks like the next film we're going to get out of the DCU is Supergirl. I'm really excited to see how they present her, because in the comic books, she's a far more complex character than Superman. She has a lot more trauma in her life because, if you're not aware, in some of the most recent iterations of Supergirl, she kind of saw her planet be destroyed. She knows that everybody she loved is dead. She was supposed to come to Krypton to be Superman's protector, but she got stuck in some sort of time vortex and comes in is now younger than him, though she has more knowledge of Krypton and her culture than he does. And so she has a lot more loss in her heart, knowing that all of Krypton was destroyed than he does. And that can cause you some real trauma. Like, imagine if your whole world was destroyed. How would that affect you? Now, imagine you have super strength, heat vision, you can fly and all that stuff. And how would you react? And I look forward to seeing that. So that looks to be a great next film. And then, of course, we're going to see the Fantastic Four and a whole lot more Marvel actors in Avengers Doomsday. And I look forward to seeing how this cast interacts with the traditional MCU cast, as well as the X-Men Fox Universe cast. I am hoping for good things. Oh, on the merch front, not only did I get a Fantastic Four keychain, I also got a cool little popcorn bucket, like a retro-looking popcorn bucket with a little Galactus guy. I did not want to pay the $90 for if I had the cash for it, I would have. I'm lying. I did want to pay the $90 for the giant Galactus popcorn bucket. That's like the largest popcorn bucket ever. Or the little Herbie the Robot popcorn bucket that projects and everything. Both of those were really awesome, but I didn't have $90 to spend. Wish I did. But yeah, I got my little retro looking popcorn bucket with like kind of a mini Funko Pop looking thing here. But yeah, so back to that. Check those movies out. But now to move on to something that is a little bit more serious and somber, and not a great segue to go from A to B. Other than to say that if you want to support this show, you can support the Patreon. I will throw those links in the description of this video after it's done. I should have done it ahead of time. My bad. But we'll throw those links out there. You can always join the Patreon. We will have other podcasts coming out soon that will also be available. I'm looking to get my Star Trek themed podcast up pretty quickly for you, as well as exclusive podcasts to Patreon patrons. I'm still in the process of getting all this set up, you guys. It does take funding to do that. And so every donation that's been made is going to go towards that effort to add content to not only all of my social media channels, to this Patreon, but also individual podcasts that will be going out in the future for you to enjoy. I have a lot of good stuff creatively in the works coming up. Just takes time. And with that segue, we are going to discuss two celebrity deaths, two kind of nostalgic saying goodbyes here. And the first, we'll just go chronologically, is rest in peace to Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne, aka the Prince of Darkness, the frontman of Black Sabbath, as well as his own distinguished solo rock career. A reality TV star at the dawn of reality television, and a beloved English icon, from Birmingham, England. May he rest in peace. Only weeks after his final concert, which I actually covered here on this live stream, talking about what a great concert it was, how it was a great send-off to his career, and how I was looking forward to him being able to spend more time with the kids and grandkids and kind of reflect back on his life and get to enjoy the golden years. He only had a few weeks of that, which is tragic. And my condolences to his family, to his wife, Sharon, to his children, Amy, Jack, and Kelly, to his grandchildren, to all of his friends and loved ones and family. It's really sad. I watched the funeral procession today, a public funeral, which is so in line. Ozzy was a showman. He was an entertainer, and he wanted to share even his final moments with his fans and with those who cared about him. And my heart breaks for his family. His wife was literally, I think, the thing that kept him alive as long as he was, passing away at the age of 78. I believe that, if my math is correct, 76, actually. I'm so bad. And really, what an icon of music, but also an imperfect person, right? Like we recognize that, he's beloved, and he had his ups and downs in his life. He had challenges with, he was not a perfect person, because none of us are perfect people. And much of his struggles in life were very public. Struggles with addiction, living that rock and roll lifestyle, health challenges that he was very public about and talked about, both being diagnosed with Parkinson's, as well as undergoing mobility challenges following neck and back surgeries, and just kind of how his body had been beaten up through the rock and roll lifestyle throughout his life. But he also was someone who you could clearly see loved his family, loved his fans, loved his community. Was always one to speak up and speak out for things that mattered. As a gay man, I appreciate that when his guitarist in the 80s made disparaging remarks about HIV/AIDS, he spoke up about how wrong that was, and then donated to charities to kind of apologize on behalf of his band, which is a real front man thing to do, right? As well as, spoke up when the Westboro Baptist Church tried to protest using his music. He spoke up for the LGBTQ community, spoke up for the rights of all people. And really, there's a band called Ghost, and their front man said, for a guy called the Prince of Darkness, he really brought a lot of light into the world. And that's true, even to the end. His last concert raised a record amount of money for a charity. It's the most a charity concert has ever raised, and it went for Parkinson's research into children's hospitals in Birmingham. And I can think of no better way for somebody who really cared about his community and cared about people to have said goodbye with a final concert that gave so much back. And so, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. I'm rewatching the Osbournes right now, actually. I'd been doing that recently, but now I'm kind of binge watching. And it's just really amazing how, like, kind of just like us he was, and how reality television at that time was not as scripted as it is today. And it was just about catching lightning in a bottle, like just filming for hours and hours and hours and finding the stories instead of manufacturing the stories. And so, that's where he was given like life to a whole new generation, my generation, millennials. If you weren't a fan of heavy metal music, you didn't really know who Ozzy Osbourne was if you were a millennial until the Osbournes came out and on MTV, and you got to see him interact with his family, and it kind of gave an entirely new second half of his career to him and introduced him to an entire new generation of fans, all the way up until his final concert and his passing. And I think that he is an icon, and he was a trendsetter in music, creating this genre of heavy metal, like just being part of that whole introduction to heavy metal as a musical genre, all the way to being a reality TV show pioneer. And I'm glad he is going out with much belovedness, and people are respecting the family and giving them love and respect and condolences. And yeah, shout out to Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. And if you haven't heard some of his songs, I mean, if you like power ballads, "Mama, I'm Coming Home," and especially now I'm thinking about Sharon, is like a gut punch of a ballad. It's so good. Dreamer is a great song as well if you're looking for some of his stuff later on in his career. I like Shot in the Dark, Bark at the Moon, of course, Iron Man and War Pigs from back in the Sabbath days. I really like No More Tears. Like, there's so many great Ozzy Osbourne songs, like Mr. Crowley. Like, check them all out. If you haven't listened to Ozzy Osbourne, take a little time to throw it on the Spotify or YouTube music playlist and get ready to have your mind blown, because it is a really great musical catalog. But going from a beloved musical icon for generations to a beloved entertainment icon in the world of sports entertainment or pro wrestling, I'm going to transition right over to rest in peace to Hulk Hogan. Now, Hulk Hogan might have a little bit more quote unquote controversy, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but also, just like Ozzy Osbourne, a beloved character for generations of people, a reality TV show star whose family really got exposed to the world through reality TV and gave a kind of second half to the career. An imperfect being for sure, not somebody who is without controversy, especially towards the end of his life. But also somebody that a lot of people in my age range or older even, really, it's a part of their childhood. I was born right in the middle of Hulkamania. I was born in 1985. So my older brothers were Hulkamaniacs. They were fans of professional wrestling as kids. And Hulk Hogan was like, we mentioned Superman earlier. What Superman is to comic books, Hulk Hogan is to pro wrestling. It's like what Babe Ruth is to baseball. He is kind of the largest name in that industry because he kind of revolutionized it, along with Vince McMahon and what was called the WWF, now the WWE, in the 1980s. They helped revolutionize professional wrestling from the territorial wrestling system to the international spectacle that it is today. And I don't think we would have the WWE today if you didn't have both Vince McMahon, another imperfect being for sure, and Hulk Hogan being his largest star, really revolutionizing the business, with the rock and wrestling connection, with like folks like Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T and MTV, and like these things that were just coming about in the 1980s. All of that just kind of came together, and Hulk Hogan was one of the biggest ingredients in all of that. And so, as a wrestling fan, purely as a wrestling fan, I have to acknowledge the impact that Hulk Hogan has had on that industry, that there wouldn't be a professional wrestling as we know it today without him. And despite political differences, of course, I ran against Donald Trump. He spoke at Donald Trump's convention back last year. Despite political differences, I have to acknowledge his impact on the business. Despite the imperfect nature of himself, I have to acknowledge that, and also acknowledge that he has family and loved ones and friends who care about him, and that he also touched the lives a lot of people. While he may have affected some people's lives in a negative way, he also did a lot of work to touch people's lives in a positive way, from the Make-A-Wish stuff to, appearances for charity and things like that. And so I'm not going to demonize. I've seen a lot of demonizing online of Hulk Hogan. And I actually want to compare that to the fact that Ozzy's response has been much different, though both of them have had very, very traumatic and bad things that they've done in their lives, and have both, in their own way, I think, sought to atone for it. I don't think Hulk Hogan really went far enough in terms of apologizing for some of the comments he made about race personally, but that's neither here nor there now. He's no longer here, and there are people who are going to miss him. And I just find it so weird how so many in pop culture have just and I'm saying goodbye to both of them, and how pop culture and the media have forgiven many of the negative things that Ozzy has done in the past, in terms of, he wasn't the perfect husband or perfect dad. I think even his kids and his wife would admit that, but that he always meant well and loved. And I also think Hulk Hogan's family would admit the same about Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. But the response from the community has been very different. And I think that has to do with why and what were the controversial things they were known for. And also there was a lot of distance between kind of the craziest behavior of Ozzy Osbourne and his passing, and a lot of the Hulk Hogan controversy is much more recent. But both are imperfect people. We're all imperfect people. And when I die, I'm sure there are going to be people who miss me, and there are people who are going to say I was a bad person, an imperfect being, because I'm an imperfect being. No one's perfect. But Hulk Hogan had a huge impact on my life. Probably the loudest crowd I've ever been in, if you want some memories, in my life as a wrestling fan, music fan, probably the loudest crowd I've ever been in was at the Georgia Dome when Hulk Hogan faced off against Goldberg on Monday Night Nitro. Hulk Hogan was a bad guy at the time, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the world champion, and he was wrestling Goldberg, who was the undefeated good guy at the time in the world of WCW wrestling, and in front of just a packed crowd at the Georgia Dome. It was the loudest. I mean, when Goldberg got Hogan up for his finisher to win the match, just the roof was just blown off the joint. I mean, it's a moment that I have with some of my friends from middle school. It's just emblazoned into my brain because I was such a huge wrestling fan in the 90s. And see, that's really the Hulk Hogan I got to know the most. I saw, my real first memories of Hulk Hogan were around WrestleMania 6 when he wrestled the Ultimate Warrior. And my brother loved the Ultimate Warrior. I was a Hulkamaniac at the time in terms of those two wrestling each other. But really where I got to see most of Hulk Hogan's career was in WCW in the 90s, and especially after he kind of became Hollywood Hulk Hogan with the NWO in the mid 90s, which really set off the Monday Night War and the explosion of wrestling between WCW and WWF/WWE. And again, revolutionized the business. Not only did he revolutionize the business once in the 80s, he did it again in the 90s. So again, he's not a perfect person. And I'm not going to excuse the bad behavior of him any more than I would excuse the bad things that Ozzy Osbourne did when he was crazy on drugs way back in the day, and living the rock and roll lifestyle. I'm not going to forgive either one. It's not my job to forgive or to excuse either one of their behaviors. There's a spiritual side to that, in my opinion, a forgiveness that is a lot more important than what me, Chase Oliver, the live streamer, cares about. And I'm certain their friends and family don't give two shits, if I forgive them or whatever. So condolences to both the families of Hulk Hogan and the families of Ozzy Osbourne, their loved ones, their fans, the people who they had an impact on in their lives. My condolences to both of them. Building Fins Up says, thank you. It's very refreshing to see somebody so involved in politics to understand that people who disagree with you are still people. Exactly. I would be hypocritical if I started hating on people for having political difference. I'd also be lonely, by the way. I'm a libertarian. We're a third party. We're like 1% of the vote to 3% of the vote in elections. So if I just had to disagree and hate people who disagree with me politically, it'd be pretty lonely, right? Many of my friends are Democrats and Republicans. As much as I try to get them to vote the other way and try to convince them, and I won't shut up about it, they vote differently, and I can't hate them. They're human beings. So I'm going to kind of end the stream here in just a little bit with the lesson here. We discussed great art that can have an impact, that can have a message, that can have a positive, warm feeling in these films, The Fantastic Four, First Steps, and Superman. And I encourage you to take those feelings. If you go watch these films and they warm your heart, you feel good. You see a dad and their kids going in to watch Superman. You as a parent feel a little bit more full in your heart when you see the power of parenthood and Fantastic Four, First Steps. I want you to take those positive feelings forward into the world. Don't just leave it in the theater. Take it with you. You can be your own Superman. You can be your own Fantastic Four if you just do some good in the world. And you don't need a government to compel you to do that. You can do those amazing things yourself. And maybe you can't leap tall buildings in a single bound. Maybe you don't have the power of a locomotive. Maybe you can't spontaneously combust or turn invisible, or you're not a giant rock monster, or you can't stretch your skin. Maybe you're not a towering kaiju-sized galactic world eater. But you can be exceptional in the life of other people, in your community, by being a good person and being empathic. That's the real superpower in the world. And in fact, that's a theme that's really present in both of these films, that the superpowers are superficial. What really makes them heroes is the empathy that they have for other people and the fact that they care beyond just themselves. So take that forward out of the theater, take it into the world, and maybe listen to a little Ozzy Osbourne or some Black Sabbath. Maybe watch some professional wrestling, some of those old WrestleManias that made you feel like a kid again. Take those positive feelings forward. Do some headbanging with your friends. Watch some body slams with your bros or your kids or your parents. Spend some time with those who love you and with those whom you can love. Because I'm telling you, it will recharge you. It will re-energize you. It will make you feel both super and fantastic and make you ready to face the world. Just some last things. Thank you for sharing your positivity, says Gabby. Thank you for feeling that positivity. Pay it forward. Here. Thanks for the stream and positive messages, Mr. Oliver. Thank you, Jason, for watching the stream. Share it out to other people. Let them know about this stream that we're here every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern to talk about pop culture, politics, where they intersect. Man, imagine if this is what we had in the White House. I wouldn't have so much time for live streaming, but you would have that positivity. And man, I would love to, if I were the president, I would be loving to talk about the themes of empathy and love and respect and mutual admiration that we can have for each other, even if we're not the same people. Which superheroes are libertarian besides Captain Planet, says Mark Hamill IV. lovely name there. There's lots of libertarian superheroes. But the biggest libertarian superhero in your life can be you, and working with other libertarians and other people in the liberty movement around you to make positive change, both in the world of politics, at those county commission meetings, those city council meetings, but also getting out in the street and letting your voice be known and uniting together for a common cause, which is freedom, individual expression. You can be a superhero that way. You can also, be a libertarian superhero by just, doing things in the world that people will say, the government will take care of that. How about you take care of that? You see some trash in the street, pick it up. Help keep your neighborhood clean. Don't insist that the government has to hire street sweepers to do that. Sweep your own street. right? You see a neighbor in need, an elderly neighbor in need. How about you go do the grocery shopping for them, or give them a ride to the pharmacy? So that way they don't have to have government sponsored welfare. Be the welfare in your community for those in need, because then we don't have to rely on government. We don't have to say, the government will take care of that. They'll just tax me and they'll take care of that. Let us take care of that. And that's what I want to end this stream with is be the positive change you want to be in the world. Be your own superhero and be a superhero to those around you, and watch as others see that and start doing the same. So spread it along, pass it, pass it all on to the next person, pay it forward, and do it with love and liberty in your heart. And I'll say goodbye to you. And I wish each and every one of you watching this stream, who watches it now and who will watch it in the future, peace, love, and liberty. I'll see you next week.